Welcome back, everyone. I am Katie Moore, co-host of this year's Women's Biohacking Conference. And today I am so excited because I am joined by my real life best friend, no longer internet best friend, Brittany Ford, to talk about optimizing your health and your fertility ahead of conception and things to think about, way ahead of time rather than waiting to the last minute. So a little bit about my guest today. On most days, this is true because we did go to the Biohacking Conference together. You're going to find Brittany enjoying her unique coffee blend that's enriched with goat butter and mushroom powder and collagen as she delves deep into health topics from the comfort of her home, or in this case, it was Florida. But Brittany is really, truly one of those people that she walks into the room and it lights up. She is full of vivaciousness, enthusiasm for everything from biohacking to nature and wellness. And she's the perfect example of like the person who walks the walk and talks the talk. And she is quite possibly one of my biggest role models in the space. And I've been following her for a while. So over a decade, she's really had to navigate a complex health journey herself. And she's had to overcome leaky gut syndrome, candida, parasites, dysbiosis, and hormonal imbalances. And she's used a lot of different health strategies to get there. So Brittany channels her experiences to inspire others and share insights. You can find her on multiple platforms, but probably the biggest ones are her Instagram and her very popular and award-winning podcast, Biohacking with Brittany. So without further ado, I feel like I've made my girl crush very known. Brittany, I couldn't leave out the fact that we were internet friends for 2 years and then we finally got to meet in person. And you truly are one of those people in the space that I feel like I can confidently say I trust so much with a lot of knowledge. And you've been through a lot. And I know right now you're going through a stage of life where you're considering your health prior to fertility. And I'd love to kind of just start with what that journey looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. I am so excited. And it was awesome to meet you in person in June. It was like one of the highlights of that entire trip for me. And just like meeting a bunch of other women in the biohacking space was so cool because like we're kind of all spread out. And so to just be in the same spot and hang out was awesome. And maybe one day the Women's Biohacking Conference will be in person, and that will just be so powerful to have like that female energy all in one place. And I really look forward to that. So yeah, I'm on quite the journey. I started with, when I was a teenager, I had a bunch of health issues and I really didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know why I was experiencing the symptoms I was experiencing. And so I ended up going down this rabbit hole of seeing a naturopath and kind of first learning about wellness, even like before wellness was wellness as it is today. And it was really exciting. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And yeah, it transformed. I kind of figured out how to heal my gut. And then I was in school and then I was in, the corporate world for a while. And now fast forward to today, I am navigating this new time of my life where I want to have a kid, but not yet. And so it's really made me think, what do I need to do now so that when I start trying, I will have the best success rate, the healthiest pregnancy, the healthiest birth possible, postpartum period, and everything like that. And because I've had this experience through other health issues, I'm very aware that the earlier you start, the better your outcomes are going to be later. And I didn't want to just leave it. I didn't want to just be like suddenly in my postpartum period and, maybe be experiencing like postpartum depression or something like that and kind of just be confused. I was like, no, I want to set myself up for success. So what do I have to do now? And that's kind of where I've been for the last like 10 months, even like very long time, is just like exploring this preconception stage in general.
Wow. Yeah. I remember us talking about it and I thought to myself, like, that is such a smart move because I'm sure, and I'm curious after having talked to women, like they maybe start this sort of like pre-fertility health journey, like a month or two before they're going to conceive, right? And I do honestly feel like that's not enough time, right? To get your body, I mean, walk me through how much time realistically, if you're mediocre health, right? You're not like an optimized biohacker, which you are, but even if you just know there are some places in your life that you want to improve, like when should you really begin realistically?
Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed quite a few fertility experts on my podcast now, and without a doubt, everyone says about 90 to 100 days before you start trying. And that's for you and your partner. So I kind of created this like preconception cleanse that me and my husband are on right now. And I really looked at it holistically. So it's not just like, oh, drink a gallon of water a day and maybe go to the gym. It's like, no, let's actually take a look at what affects our fertility for men and for women, and what can we change about it? So let's look at nutrition. Let's look at substances that we're exposed to and toxins, because if you're going to do a cleanse and a detox, you can't do that during pregnancy, right? Because it like creates risks for the baby. So you have to do it prior to that. So preconception time is a great time for detoxing. It's a great time for, sauna use and cold therapy and different things like that to really just support detox pathways so that you are healthier when it comes to the time that you're actually trying to conceive. But to be honest, a lot of people don't know about this, because when I talk to people about preconception, they're like, what do you mean preconception? Like, you mean fertility? And I'm like, no, I don't actually mean fertility. I mean like the time before fertility, right? So like fertility in my mind is very reactive, right? So, oh, we can't get pregnant. Okay, let's start our cleanse now. Oh, let me cut out alcohol and stop drinking now because there's a problem, and let me react to this problem. But when we're in that stage, there's so much stress associated with that. There's so much anxiety and depression, and it's really hard on people's relationships as well. So what if we could be more proactive and go about it as in, before we start trying, let's go through this period of, 100 days. Let's be as healthy as we can. And let's try and avoid and prevent those issues coming in the first place. And that has been my entire approach. And I kind of started this in October, but now I'm deep in the cleanse right now. So it's been interesting for sure.
I am so happy and grateful that you pointed out the difference between preconception and fertility. And to be completely honest, I didn't think the two were different. And I think even in the bio, when I was reading it, I said fertility because I think that's just what women tend to think about, right? Like when you're fertile, you're in that, stage, but you're absolutely right. Now, as I'm thinking about it, like there is a stigma attached to like, if I can't get pregnant in my fertile stage, what is this saying about me and my health versus this preconception period? And I love that you've made that distinction. I don't think I've heard anybody make that distinction yet. And I think it's very important as a society that we start to navigate this in a different way, from a different lens. So it's not like, oh yeah, now I'm fertile and I have to get this done. It's like, no, you have plenty of time. You can, if you're planning to have kids, you can do this in your early 20s, right? It's not like there's a period of time in which this actually starts, right? Yeah. I love that kind of model that you're setting up. It's so much more successful in my opinion than so that's great.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, infertility is such a significant issue, and unfortunately it's on the rise. So I think it's about 1 in every 4 couples now struggles with infertility in some way. Now, that doesn't mean that you are infertile. Like that doesn't mean there's no possibility of you having a baby. It just means that people struggle, whether it's on the male side or the female side. So this is a very big issue. And so, and I've seen people around me, I've seen my friends struggle with it. And then they go down the IVF road, and there's nothing against that. Like I'm not against that at all. But part of me is like, let's talk about lifestyle. Let's talk about detoxing and cleansing for a few months before you spend 15 grand on IVF. IVF has like a 20 to 25% chance of working. It's very hard on the woman's body. You're injected with hormones. It's very difficult. It's very difficult in the relationship, the pressure, the stress. So I really just want to support couples and women and just encourage them that there is a more gentle way to do this. It just means that it might take a little longer before you actually start to try, but the results are going to be worth it.
Yeah. Lifestyle being the key word. This
Yeah.
is something that you can't just do overnight. There's no such thing as like, I'm going to do a 1 week detox and I'm ready. No, this becomes part of your life. And if you're going to have multiple kids, like you're going to have to kind of keep this lifestyle going. Right. So let's talk about that. Let's unpack some of the things that like nutritionally you're now incorporating. And I'd love to know the things that you're not doing. Like, are you still drinking goat milk? Are there things that you're now staying away from that you might otherwise not have in this stage?
Right. Absolutely. So diet wise, I'm a holistic nutritionist. So I know quite a bit about food, and I have quite a bit of experience. So we stick to more of a paleo diet. That has a lot of research behind it supporting fertility outcomes. Same with the Western A Price diet, which is what a lot of people really, really promote for fertility. I'm kind of more on the paleo side than Western A Price. Western A Price has a lot of raw dairy, which I think is very nutrient dense, but it's actually very difficult to get raw dairy in Canada. So it's not something that I kind of seek out right now in my life. But if you have access to like organic grass-fed raw dairy, go for it. It's a whole food. It's very nutrient dense. And if you can tolerate it as well. But yeah, so a lack of processed food is essential, and a lack of, just takeout food, right? We kind of know I don't want to say clean food or clean eating, but we kind of know what whole foods are versus like going out and, getting a pizza and that type of thing. So we stick to homemade meals like 90% of the time. A lot of the time, I was joking with my husband the other day, Ryan, a lot of the time, like our lunches and breakfasts are even just like more random ingredients just put on a plate and eating it together, like kind of like a charcuterie board for every meal, because it actually is just a great way to get in a bunch of nutrient dense foods, right? So if you have like cucumbers and pickles and carrots and homemade hummus, like that's great. Or like I do coconut yogurt and homemade granola that doesn't have any grains in it with like berries and stuff like that. So I guess as whole and nutrient dense as possible is the key for that. And we really just want to be able to, especially for the woman, we really want to be able to increase the nutrient stores in her body prior to getting pregnant. And even if you're listening to this or watching this and you've had a baby and maybe you're thinking about baby number 2, it's actually more important for you to do something like this after baby 1. So the general recommendation is actually between to when you should start with your second kid is after your first baby's been born, you need 2 years until you start trying for the next one. And that's because it takes about 2 years for the mom's body to restore the minerals, the vitamin levels, the hormones, and everything like that. So if you're going to be really supporting your body with like nutrient dense whole foods, you're going to really ramp up that process a lot faster than if you're, eating takeout all the time or DoorDash or anything like that.
I'm laughing so hard because like I think about like my grandmother's generation and they used to joke it's like Irish twins where it was like one was born and then like not even a year later another was born. It's just like you're like churning out kids left and right.
I know.
They didn't think about that. However, that was a very healthy generation too because they didn't have all the shitty processed foods and seed oils. So it's like and EMFs and we'll get to all of that. But it's now is a time that we do live in a society in which we are just inundated with toxicity in so many like aspects of our life. It is overwhelming to think about, but I want to just emphasize, even if you're not getting pregnant or if you're not interested in fertility, like this still is really useful information. And I would love to talk about like hormone balancing. I think that's a very like vague term, but I think there are definitely some things that you want to think about probably when it comes to hormonal dysregulation prior to, that fertility period and how you can avoid that. So what are some common practices? And we can talk about supplements that maybe you're taking, exercises you're doing. Like, I'd love to get really in the nitty-gritty on that.
Yeah. I think hormone balancing is interesting. It's becoming such a trend, just like gut health. Gut health and hormone balancing is such a social media trend. But I think it's good. And I think the amount of education coming out now about women's menstrual cycle is really important because we didn't really have that for so long. So it's great to see cycle syncing become popular and people talk about like different workouts during different phases of your cycle. And some people think, oh, that's just ridiculous. Like there's no science behind that. But if that's what makes a woman feel better, I'm 100% for that. And if that makes her feel the best in her body, I support that. And also, again, like it's helping women understand the different phases. It's not just like you have a period for 5 days and that's it. And that's all your cycle is. And you can get pregnant the rest of the month, right? And that's what we're kind of taught. Like when we're young, the idea is like, oh, you can get pregnant so quickly. Watch out. Everyone go on birth control so you don't get pregnant. But in reality, you ovulate for 24 hours. So sperm can live inside of a woman for up to 5 days. So there is like about 5 days there that you can get pregnant. But that's it. Out of a 30-day cycle, you can only get pregnant for 5 days. And I was not taught that when I was younger.
Hell no. No, absolutely not. Like I was so scared that I could just walk down the street and get pregnant. Like that's the kind of fear mentality,
I know.
It's
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so like I went on birth control at 16 and I was so young and I didn't know any better,
Same.
like I didn't know any better. And even though I was starting my health journey at the same time, I was like, oh, it's a low dose, right? Like it's a low dose pill. And then I had an IUD and I was like, oh, it's Marina, it's low or progesterone, whatever, right? And then 7 years later, I'm like, whatever, 24 or whatever, 23. And I've been on birth control for that long. And I'm like, I'm still so young at 23. I'm still so young. And so I came off of it because I felt like I had to, because, I just thought, what about the health risks? And it's been interesting coming off of it because my cycle has been so irregular and I've had so many symptoms. And deep down, I know that if I never went on birth control, I probably wouldn't be dealing with the health issues that I'm dealing with today, which sucks.
Can we talk a little bit more about that? So, and in full transparency, this is sort of a weird correlation that I'm going to make. But I think of all people, like you might actually be able to speak to this. I was on this one birth control again, back in my early 20s, in which I would get my periods seasonally. I think it was like seasonique or something. So every 4 months. Wow. I'm no longer on birth control, but now every 4 months, like I get my period pretty much every month, but every 4th month, I have extreme pain, extremely heavy. And I'm like, and so it only dawned on me recently, could that have still been some correlation, right? Between what happened for my body for so long.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that, but I'm also just curious about titrating off of birth control. Like, is that part of it? Or you just like stop cold turkey?
Yeah. I mean, with birth control, you would want to stop cold turkey. Like you're kind of on it or you're off of it. I think if you go on and off and kind of like play around, it's just going to mess up your hormones more. But obviously birth control has our place in society, right? Like it's allowed women to build careers and work longer and it's been great. And it does have a place in society. It's just that it's often overprescribed and it doesn't come with all of the appropriate warnings. And we actually don't have enough research on it to understand the long-term effects of it. You know what I mean? So it's a big thing. And so when I work with clients and they come off birth control, the recommendation is always like, let's go at least a year before you start trying for a baby, because otherwise there's complications, there's risks. Also, like your periods and your cycles are going to be all over the place. Your body needs time to get normalized without this secretion of synthetic hormones in your body. And a lot of people don't know that, and they don't necessarily want to hear that, right? It's like, oh, I'm ready to get pregnant. Okay, I'm coming off of birth control. My next cycle, I'm going to ovulate and I'm going to get pregnant. And then when that doesn't happen, they're like, wait a minute, but you told me everything would be fine. The doctor said that this would work. Why isn't this working? And so many people go through that, and it's such BS. And I'm, yeah, it just makes me angry and sad at the same time.
I know. And I talk to a lot of women as well who have had that same exact struggle. It's like, wait, I thought there was like a light switch going off, right? Like it's on, it's off, it's done. It's not, it's more complicated. So, because you've been kind of going through this transition yourself, how do you support your body? What do you offer, women who are thinking about going off birth control and maybe scared for that reason? Because they're like, it's going to be painful and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
How can you support your body through that time?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, if you think that you are in a place where you can come off of birth control, you're in a stable relationship, and that's a personal decision. If you think that you can do that, I would suggest doing it as soon as possible and giving yourself as much time off of birth control before you try to conceive as possible. And then beyond that, just understanding that there might be symptoms that pop up. Your weight might fluctuate, your skin might fluctuate, but let's give it time. And then that's when we kind of get into the hormone balancing, right? Through nutrient dense food, through supplements, taking a look at the toxins that we're exposed to, how we're detoxing, environment, stress, sleep, basically like all the things that biohackers kind of like pick at and try to like optimize is like what we would essentially be doing for that. But yeah, it's tough. Like I actually had a close family friend who was on birth control for 10 years. She came off of it and she thought she would get pregnant right away. And they tried for a year. They didn't get pregnant. And then she got pregnant. She had a miscarriage. She got pregnant the next month and she had a miscarriage. So she had 2 miscarriages back to back. They took a few months off and then she got pregnant and then she was successful. Now she has a healthy baby. So it is possible. And like you can get pregnant and you will get pregnant. It's just that if we can support the body and balance things out and kind of get you to optimize your health as much as we can, it's going to reduce the risks of all of that kind of happening.
I feel like a lot of the issues I hear from women also have to do with the toxic load that our bodies are under all the time. I mean, we could go into probably an hour and a half long discussion about that, but I want to know from your perspective, like someone who's thinking in this preconception state, what are your non-negotiables? Like, I have to make sure this thing is no longer going to affect my toxic bucket or whatever it is. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So toxic wise or toxin wise, there's a lot to say. EMF is a big thing, just radiation in general. So no phones in the front pockets, Wi-Fi off at night, just being really aware of that. No Bluetooth, no Bluetooth headphones, using wired headphones, even as wild as that might seem. In the morning, I download a podcast episode. I put my phone on airplane mode. I put my wired headphones in and I go on an hour-long walk every morning. And it seems like so archaic at this point to do something like that. But we really just want to reduce how much radiation and EMF that we're exposed to because of how stressful it can be on our body, on our cells, on our mitochondria that really impacts everything like that. That's a great place to start. And you can do little things, right? Like even just switching your Wi-Fi off at night is a big step. I also never have Bluetooth on my phone. I also have my phone on low, I think it's called low battery mode, low power mode or something when the little bar is yellow on my iPhone. That also reduces the amount of EMF and radiation coming from the phone because that means that the apps aren't always running in the background. So it's less power in general. So that's something I do. And then my husband, it's very, very important for men to be aware of EMF and radiation around their testicles, super important. So basically, sperm has a 60-day maturation period. So the sperm that someone makes today, in 60 days, it's matured, but then it needs about another 30 days before it can come out. So that's actually partly why the 90-day period is so important, is because the sperm that is actually going to potentially make your baby after 90 or 100 days, you want that sperm to have been created while you're in this cleanse, not prior to it, right? So that's part of it. But also, EMF and radiation really, it just can really impact sperm quality. It impacts quality, quantity, motility. It can cause mutations. So there's different sperm mutations. We can kind of get into it, but sometimes sperm can have like 2 heads or 2 tails, or the tails can be short. And that can really impact the health of your child. So there's a lot here, but I kind of have like a little checklist. It's on I actually have the piece of paper in front of me. It's like 6 things, 6 steps. I call it baby steps. That's
cute.
It's part of my preconception cleanse. And that's kind of like what I walk clients through, is like, let's do these 6 things as much as we can for at least 100 days. And then you're going to be at a much, much healthier place. Yeah.
What about sleep? And I know you already take pretty good care of your sleep health and hygiene, but is now the time to, sorry, this is like probably the weirdest question ever, but like build up your sleep like bank because you're not gonna sleep.
Yeah. I hear you. I think sleep is pivotal. We sleep about 1/3 of our entire life, right? So it's not something to take lightly. We have a pretty strict sleep regimen, and I really encourage people to kind of do the same. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine does, or maybe like yours does. You have to find what works for you, but ideally it's like day in and day out, you kind of do the same thing. So, I turn off Bluetooth, like I talked about, and Wi-Fi and everything like that. No blue light. So we have red lights in our apartment. So the apartment looks hilarious at night for people who walk by on the street. It kind of looks like a brothel because it's just red lights only. And then I have my blue blocking glasses. So I'm very sensitive to blue light at night, and blue light suppresses melatonin. So if we're looking at our phone and we're scrolling at 9 p.m. and we're expecting to fall asleep at 9:30, how is that going to work? Right. And maybe you do fall asleep, but maybe you wake up an hour later, and maybe you're just not having the good quality sleep that you should be having. So we turn off the blue light. We read before bed as well, give about half an hour of reading in red light. I also wear my blue blockers. It's kind of hard to see the pages, but I still do it. And just being really mindful of creating a calming evening routine that is really nourishing for you. And so some people do like baths and have like bath salts and do stuff like that, which I think is really nice too. Essential oils, that can be really calming as well. But it's just about like turning off, unplugging, spending about an hour before you go to sleep so that you can have a better sleep outcome. And then of course you can get something like an Aura ring to track this and see how your sleep is actually going.
I also think that's so sweet that you have like this bonding moment with your partner, like where you're reading, and you're doing like, I think that's also a very important thing to kind of take into consideration. And I'm just like talking generally, like as a social factor that we maybe overlook when we're talking about fertility. We're always like and I love the science and the medical stuff, but like, having a really healthy relationship with your partner before in the preconception, I think that's a big thing that needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the nice thing as well about doing a preconception cleanse with your partner is like you are doing it together. So you are 6 weeks sober and healthy together, and you get to exercise every day, and you can do it together or you can do it separately, but it's something to talk about. It's something to bond over. And it's really awesome. Like my husband has been so good about it. I made him do a bunch of tests at the beginning because I want to test and see what the 100 days does to him. So he did Viome, he did Glycanage, he did Inside Tracker. And so these are tests to do like vitamin, minerals, hormones, biological age, and then his gut health scores. So I'm curious of like 100 days of this, minimum 100 days, really. Like, what is that going to show on your cellular level? What is that going to show for your health? And not just about like having a baby. Like, let's just talk about like, if we were to do this full time, all the time, which would be tough, like, how healthy could you be? Like, what does this mean for your longevity? What does this mean for you and your performance at work? Like, I don't know.
The like, possibilities are endless, sort of. I'm curious though. I love, and it's like that like little data nerd in me. It's like, I love that you made him take all these tests, and you're so well versed that you can actually explain what some of these things mean, which is wonderful. Like if you're in that position. Genetics wise, though, have you guys have that discussion, and how big of an impact is that gonna take it? Because I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to do that with like epigenetics and all that things, but I feel like that's probably a common discussion that couples are having.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, we both had our genes done actually a while ago, a few years ago, we did it. And it was interesting to see the things that I struggle with. And it kind of makes sense, actually. Some detox pathways, some hormone balancing. There's certain B vitamins that work better with my body than other people's and stuff like that. But we haven't necessarily looked at what it would look like for a baby. And maybe that's something I should explore. I'm not a genetics expert. And so I know there are quite a lot of people in this space who do that, but it would be interesting, I guess, because from the standpoint of like, what could we potentially pass down to a child? And what genes do you have that aren't great? And what do you have that's great? And vice versa with me. And like, what, but I don't know. At the same time, you kind of get what you get. And then also epigenetics is a major factor. So yeah, I don't know.
It's a double-edged sword, right? Because you sort of want to know. It's almost like finding out the like gender of your child. Like sometimes people really want to know. And then other times you're like, well, there's not, I can't do anything about it now. So it'll be a surprise. And I feel that's probably a very similar conversation. So don't be afraid with your partner. If you don't want to look at your genetics, I feel like that's like, do it or don't do it. It's really up to you and how you want to navigate that with your partner. And I think I would really like to sort of get into the weeds about like medical conditions and how big of a role, like if you're on pharmaceuticals, like how much does that play into this sort of detox period? This could get a little like, I know dicey and people don't want to talk about it, but fuck it. Like, I want to talk about this stuff because I mean, people are on antidepressants, people are on, all sorts of medication and not just birth control. How do you navigate that world when you're going through something like this? Do you ignore it? Do you address it?
I think it has to be a part of it. I think that, I mean, obviously it depends what it is. And like, obviously it depends on the specific pharmaceutical that you're on. I think that it has to be taken into consideration, but I also I don't want to just say, come off of everything and detox, because you have no idea what someone's history is like. And you have no idea the mental health struggles maybe that they've been through and personal life issues and all of these different things. I would be very cautious about what I would be on during pregnancy. And I think people are. I think it's hard though. I think there's a lot of stigma around it. I think there's a lot of shame around it for women who might be on antidepressants. There's a lot of shame about postpartum depression, and postpartum anxiety now is a big thing, which is really sad. And so if a woman feels that an antidepressant is maybe what she needs postpartum, there's a lot of shame if she's breastfeeding and she goes on it. And what does that mean for the baby and all of these different things? And I think at the end of the day, women need to do what's best for them. And I would just encourage women to do the research. And that doesn't mean like, sure, you can go read the PubMed studies, sure. But also just like listen to podcasts, talk to other people who have been through it, talk to people on social media, just get more opinions than just your one doctor is what I would do and what I've done for most of the conditions and things that I've been dealing with. There's a ton of resources out there now on YouTube, on every social platform about women who have been through what you're going through. Like, you're not the first person, right? And so how do we find those people, and how can we connect with someone who gets it? I think is really important.
I feel like you're bringing up a really good point, which is, to me, the whole reason for like this whole biohacking space, which kind of, we've talked about this at length. It's that word maybe doesn't quite define, but if we're using that word in this context, what that really means is being your own self advocate for health.
Yeah.
I think we're finally getting to that point where, when it comes to fertility discussions and preconception discussions, like, you can get so much information from your gyno or your primary care, but there's going to be a lot of individualization things that they're not going to have time for. Yeah. But it's like your time to look at it from your angle. And I think that's the key for, and like natural solutions, potentially looking into those, right? Which I'm sure you have some for postpartum, which is obviously something that a lot of women are fearful of.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think there needs to be just like radical responsibility for how you go about the birth and pregnancy in general. And so I was just listening to a podcast about this, and that means that if you decide to give birth in a hospital and you have a random doctor, you take responsibility for what happens there, because you ultimately made that decision to be there. I mean, sometimes there are emergencies for sure, or if you decide, hey, I'm going to have a home birth and I'm going to have a midwife and I'm going to have a doula, you also have to take responsibility for that. And if something goes wrong, that's your responsibility. You made that decision. So there has to be this understanding of like radical responsibility when it comes to, getting pregnant, birth, and afterwards. And you can't necessarily just blame other people, because a lot of the time you had a hand in it. That being said, it's actually empowering because you do have a hand in it. So you can choose to work with people who are going to be by your side, who are going to be more hands-on. I have a friend right now who is due in February, and she lives close by. And I was like, I suggest you go to this birth center. They have a midwife. Let me tell you what midwives can do for you. And I was like, you don't have to choose it, but like, let me just give you some information, because you might not know. And she had no idea. And then now she has a midwife, right? So now she has somebody who is going to be there, and it's not just a random doctor in the hospital. There's someone who's going to advocate for her. It's not just her and her husband with the firstborn. They have no idea what they're doing. So it's about, like we said, educating, research, and making ultimately the best decision that you can for yourself and your family.
Yeah. And I love that that's one of the beauties of what you do in this world too, is like, you don't tell people you have to do this and this is the only right way. Yeah. It's like, we know how to set boundaries for ourselves, and we can say to people, here's some information, take it, leave it, do what you want. Because at the end of the day, again, what empowers us is to feel like we can take control of the situation and understand what our individual needs are, and make those personal choices. These are personal choices to get pregnant, to go through whatever pregnancy, to eat clean, to not. It's, again, there's no hard, fast rule or anything that like these have to be checked off the list in order for this to be successful. It's just not, right? And I really do love and admire that about you and how you communicate this information. So anyway, I do want to talk before we kind of close on physical exercise. Yeah. Because I don't know if like HIIT exercise is good or bad in preconception, or if it should just be strength training. Are you thinking about pelvic floor muscles? Like what is your exercise regime now?
Yeah. So part of the preconception cleanse is 1 hour of sweating every day. for you and your partner. So that doesn't necessarily mean, 1 hour in the gym. It could mean like 1 hour in the sauna, in and out type of idea. It can mean a 1 hour walk with your dog. It's more about moving the body and really supporting the lymph to move throughout the body, which is one of the ways that we detox. So how can we do that? And like this morning, I took my dog for a walk for an hour and it was great. And tomorrow I might go do a HIIT workout and stretch for an hour. But it's really about like building this into your daily life, because so many of us don't do it. So many of us are like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times this week and that's it. But like at the end of the day, like you went to the gym and you moved your body for 45 minutes for 3 times in 7 days. Like that's it. And I'm not saying like, freaking like run every single day for an hour. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, we really need to move the body more and sweat more. And we just don't in society anymore. Like we sit so long, we sit in front of a computer. A lot of us still work from home, which is great. It has benefits. Or we commute and then we get home and we're tired and we're like, I don't want to go to the gym right now. Are you out of your mind? But sweating and through the skin, again, is one of the best ways that we can detox. So that's my recommendation, is like 1 hour of sweating a day. You can choose what that looks like and do it based off of how your body feels that day. Like my partner, he played hockey last night. This morning he went to the gym. Now he's done. Tomorrow we'll probably go for a walk and get coffee, and that'll be that. Right. And again, the nice thing too is like, because you and your partner, ideally, if you're going through this with somebody, like you are able to kind of come together for those moments for movement, which is super, super good for your relationship as well. But in general, like I just want to really encourage people that if you want to do a preconception cleanse, like there's a lot that you can do that's more than just, oh, let's avoid alcohol and hot tubs or something like that, and take a prenatal vitamin. Which
I didn't know that hot tubs was a thing. Wait, why is that bad?
It's for the men. It's because heat kills sperm.
Oh, but the women are fine going in hot tubs.
Yeah,
right?
women are fine, but heat is really bad for sperm. So that's why, you'll see like men sitting like with just their feet in the hot tubs and stuff. And same with sauna. Like you actually have to be careful for men with that. But a funny note about that, I was listening to a different podcast, and there are these boxers out there called snowballs, and they literally have ice packs where the testicles go. And I just got a pair for Ryan. They're so funny. So you can, like, for example, if his hour of sweating is going to be in the sauna, he would wear those boxers with the ice packs on his testicles so that they're not heated as much and there's no sperm mutation that happens, but he can still sweat. So, wow. I mean, it's a smart idea. It's such a simple idea, but a great business idea for sure.
Seriously. And I love the name of it too. I know. Very clever marketing.
I know.
What about strength training? Are you thinking already about, kind of getting your legs and your arms and like places in your body that you're like, I'm going to be carrying a baby. I need to have more upper body strength, my back, right? Like I mean, it's obviously whole body. I would think pelvic floor health first, but I don't know. You tell me what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm doing 2 to 3 HIIT workouts a week, which includes weights in that. And I have noticed a difference in my strength for sure. So a lot of push-ups and that type of thing. I don't personally, everyone's different. I don't personally have any goals of like, I want to bench this amount. I want to squat this amount. That's not like the kind of period of life I'm in right now. But I do think strength training is really important. It's really important for building muscle, which helps us, metabolize properly, helps us keep a healthier weight. Many reasons for that in general. Also helps with bone density as well. And women are prone to lower bone density as they get older. So strength training is great for that type of thing. I think it's really important. And there's so many different ways that you can do it now at home, at a gym. It's really endless, right? Like fitness has really become tailored to whatever suits you. So it's kind of like there's no excuse to not really jump onto whatever bandwagon really suits your needs.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if I've told you, but like my new obsession is rock climbing or like
Yeah, I
bouldering.
saw.
So
Nice.
I find that I enjoy it because it's challenging, but it also feels like play. And I think sometimes at the
Yes.
end of the day,
Yeah.
that's why people are attracted to like team sports. Like it's play, right? And
Yeah.
I would just encourage people, if you get frustrated with one type of workout, or you're like, I'm so fucking sick of going to berries and I don't feel better after it, I feel stressed, like stop it. Find the thing that works for you, because once you do, then it becomes your lifestyle and it's not a
Mhm.
chore or like I have to go do this thing off, check it off my list, right?
Yeah.
At least that's what I found over the years
No.
after making a
I
lot of mistakes.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I think you're totally right. And to your point about pelvic floor, you are correct. It is really important. I actually went to a pelvic floor physiotherapist here, and those are becoming more popular. And these are professionals who have extra certifications, who understand pregnancy and what it does to the body. So that was really cool because we did like a bunch of Kegels together, and it was really interesting because you think like, oh, I know how to do a Kegel. And then they like test how strong and how flexible your pelvic floor is. It was very interesting. And then we were also looking at like ab separation, which is a big thing that can happen with women as like your rib cage and abs kind of separate when you get pregnant. It's hard to kind of put them back together. But there's things you can do. There's like tons of things you can do, right? So the beauty of it is that the pelvic floor is a muscle. So you can train it. You can train it to be flexible and strong, which is what you want. It doesn't have to be rigid and tight, which means like usually there's a harder pregnant or harder birth. There's a lot that you can do. I would suggest, if you can, find a pelvic floor physiotherapist, get a professional to kind of help you, or take a look at YouTube videos that kind of walk you through daily exercises that can help with it.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel I don't want to like promote another like big channel, but like Goop, like she has so many resources.
Yes. Yes, I love
Like
Goop. Yeah.
and I'm sorry, like I feel like that has been something that I've turned to in the past. And I think I saw something like a yoni steam bath on Goop.
Yeah.
What does that do? Does that
Oh my
help with
gosh.
fertility at all or
Yeah.
preconception? Tell me about
Yeah. So I actually just got a yoni steamer. I have always DIY'd it myself, and now I bought one. I haven't used it yet. I will actually send you the link because this company has red light therapy in it, which
Oh,
is a brilliant idea. And I actually thought of that last year, and I'm so happy somebody's doing it. So essentially it's like a seat that you sit on. There's like this little pot, you put hot water in, you put herbs in it, and then there's red light that kind of shines up your yoni, which we all know like there's a ton of benefits from red light therapy. So it's a very like stackable biohacker thing to have. But essentially yoni steaming is an ancient practice, and it helps with a bunch of different things. So first of all, the heat that comes from it really helps with circulation down there. And that's important, especially if you're dealing with cysts, fibroids, irregular cycles, PCOS, anything like that. You're bringing all of this blood flow to the area. And when you do that, it brings oxygen, it brings nutrients, it brings everything that's in the blood, and it really just nourishes that area. So that's really important. And then when you steam herbs, you're also getting all of the benefits that kind of come from those herbs as well. So you should try it. It would actually make a very good YouTube video for you because it feels really good and it's very grounding.
I don't know
Like
if I want
it's
to go viral that way.
Yeah. But what you would do is like you would sit on it and you would put like a towel over you, right? So you wouldn't see anything.
Oh, I
But
know. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to try it. Does it also help with like balancing pH? Like I've seen yoni oils that like
mm,
they're specifically designed to help like with antibacterial and
yeah,
balancing pH. Does that also happen? Is it dependent on the herbs, I guess, you put in?
I guess so. I guess it would depend. I don't know specifically, but I would assume that again, like bringing more blood flow and nutrients to the area would help with that no matter what. Um, so a lot of, yeah, I guess it would. And it's one of those things that it's great for preconception and fertility. You don't want to do it when you're on your period for obvious reasons, and you
Yeah.
don't want to do it while you're pregnant. So it has to be after. But there's a ton of women who love it postpartum, because after you give birth, obviously you've like stretched the vaginal canal and the uterus. And so it really actually helps bring it back and heal faster. So it's a very powerful tool post-birth for women, which is also very cool.
Wow. I am so glad I randomly brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to try it. It's
yeah, send me a link for sure. Maybe we'll include it below in for audience members. Well, this has been a blast as per usual. I feel like we could just talk endlessly for hours about all the crazy stuff we do. But Brittany, are you working with people one-on-one? Like how can people get in touch with you? And what about this list of like the checklist? Like I want to know, are you making that available for people?
Yes. So I am seeing clients again in the fall, starting in September. If you want to reach out and work together, send me a message on Instagram or email me, or there is a waitlist on my website, but you can just directly talk to me as well. And I would love to talk about that. I can also send people my baby steps preconception cleanse list. It's basically like 6 different topics and things that I cover. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm in week 7, I think maybe now. Me and my husband are doing it. So I really suggest people kind of do something like that to support them. And yeah, biohackingbrittany.com, biohacking Brittany, I think everywhere on socials. Biohacking with Brittany is my podcast. And I do actually a lot of podcast episodes where I just kind of riff on my personal health and what I'm going through. It's very honest and it's not very curated. So if you want to listen to that and you're kind of going through similar stages as me, I suggest, there's so much information there for you. So
and you're basically documenting your journey right now, which is so beautiful and exciting. And also, I just want to say, there's one thing that you've done that I have admired since like 2019. You answer every DM yourself. Like it's really you. And so, not to say everyone should flood your inbox, but just saying like, you really are like one of the most genuine people who cares and wants to help. And so if you guys want to get in touch with her, she will answer back,
I will. It might take me 3 days, but I will answer you.
Yeah. It takes me like 3 years. I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible at it.
I know. But when I DM you and you don't respond, I'm like, I'm sure she's still alive. She's just hanging out, doing her thing.
It's like the last thing I think about. I know. Anyway, this was a blast. I hope all of you got some really great informative information, no matter what stage of preconception, or not. I think this was just amazing advice to think about for all women and their, fertility and hormonal health. So stick around because we have another amazing speaker coming up right here on the Women's Biohacking Conference.